Not that long ago, the notion of a small 2-litre engine powering a large luxury car would have been incomprehensible. And yet, that's exactly what we have here. The brand new E-Class, in fact the E200, powered by a humble 2-litre turbo engine. As a result, the dynamic prognosis for a car like this isn't particularly favourable. And yet, sometimes everything is not what it seems. At 4.92 metres long and 1.85 metres wide, the new E-Class is a big car. But interestingly, even though it's 43 millimetres longer than its predecessor, it's actually slightly narrower and lower than the E-Class it replaces. More importantly, the wheelbase grows by 65 millimetres, creating more interior space, while the front and rear tracks are wider. And this new E is also a weight watcher, thanks to wide-ranging use of aluminium. The result is a curb mass of just under 1,600 kilograms, despite the car's visual bulk. And big the new E-Class certainly is, but while the larger S-Class is majestic and imposing and the smaller C-Class is sophisticated and elegant, this car simply lacks visual sparkle. It's unmistakably Mercedes-Benz and it's certainly smart, but it falls short when it comes to visual appeal, and as a result, it's perhaps the most uninspiring interpretation of the current Mercedes-Benz design language. However, that doesn't mean it's an inferior design. In aerodynamic terms, for instance, the E-Class sets a new benchmark in its segment, thanks to active shutters in the grille and a shape that cuts through the air more cleanly than most. The result is enhanced efficiency, which benefits both performance and fuel consumption, while the smooth airflow also means lower interior noise levels. And as we've already mentioned, that extended wheelbase translates into a more spacious interior. Not surprisingly, the cabin of the new E-Class is state-of-the-art. This central colour display is very neatly integrated into the generous sweep of the dashboard, analog dials accompanied by digital ancillaries, and of course you can also get, as an option, completely virtual instruments which are configurable as well. The ergonomics are clean and intuitive, although the center console switchgear remains arranged for left-hand drive cars, placing some buttons out of reach. The command system now includes a touchpad and smartphone-style gesture control, but again, in a right-hand drive car, that requires left-handed operation. As for space, there's plenty of it, both front and rear, and the execution even on the so-called base model is upmarket and sophisticated with loads of tactile appeal. But can the humble drivetrain cope with a big car full of people and luggage? This 2-litre 4-cylinder turbo engine is credited with 135 kilowatts of maximum power, which sounds a little bit underwhelming for this application. But do remember that there's 300 newton meters of torque on offer and from just 1200 RPM, which is a lot more confidence-inspiring. And also, let's not forget that there's a 9-speed automatic gearbox here, which means the engine is always on the boil. Indeed, the combination of a fat, flat torque band and plenty of gears makes sure that the engine is always on song and that the big sedan feels a lot keener than expected. All those aluminium body panels and the commensurate savings in weight make a vital contribution too. A drive mode selector allows further tweaking of throttle response, steering feel and gear shift action, allowing more enthusiastic drivers to tailor the car for more spirited driving. And in all fairness, the E200 feels quite sprightly if you want to drive with a measure of intent. The presence of shift paddles and a manual gearbox mode puts the driver in full control, and the engine always feels willing and eager. Mercedes-Benz credits this car with an 0-100 time of 7.7 seconds, which is pretty good given the size and the weight of the machine, and the top speed 240 kilometers an hour. Most E200 drivers will prefer the more serene approach of the Comfort Drive mode, which focuses on smooth refinement. But even then, progress is surprisingly effortless. That 9-speed gearbox is a key contributor, keeping the engine on its toes at all times. The chassis setup is neutral, with a smooth ride that is never wafty, but not uncomfortably taut either. Instead, the big Merc goes about its business with almost unobtrusive assurance. That's a good thing, but don't expect to be engaged by the big Merc. It lacks ultimate driving soul. And that's really the problem with this car. It has one of the best cabins in the business, bristling with the latest technology and featuring lots of standard gear, has adequate room and decent performance as well. But it feels the big car that it is, and as a result, it's cumbersome to drive. For 700,000 Rand plus, before extras, E-Class drivers deserve a little more. Don't be fooled by the modest power stats. A generous torque output ensures plenty of grunt, while the 9-speed auto box makes the most of the urge on offer. The interior is high-tech to the point of being futuristic, while there's plenty of space and high comfort levels too. But in pure driver enjoyment terms, the big E200 never engages.